What happens when nations clash? One of the things that nationalism has often led to is conflict, because at its core, nationalism divides people into us and them, and on some level, there's some feeling of superiority over others. If nationalism is a nation's desire to have control over its destiny, sometimes that occurs in opposition to others. And sometimes this can happen peacefully, other times catastrophically. And here are 5 ways that nationalism can lead to conflict. This is part 3 of our 3-part series on nationalism. In the first 2 parts, we looked at the definitions of nation, some of the differences between nations and nation states and countries, and some of the things that go into making a national identity. If you missed any of those videos, you can click over there and have a look. Today, we're going to look at when nations clash and when nationalism leads to conflict. And we're going to look at 5 ways in which that can happen. The first way is when nations focus on national interests over any international goals they may have. And a recent example of this is the administration of US President Donald Trump, who even in his inauguration address stressed the importance of looking after American issues and American interests first.
From this day forward, a new vision will govern our land. From this day forward, it's going to be only America first. America first.
An example of this America first approach to governing was the trade war with China, where the United States put up large tariffs on some Chinese goods, steel being one example of that, in an effort to make that trade relationship as beneficial as possible for the United States. This had the philosophy of, maybe some short-term pain with these tariffs for a more long-term gain. And another example could be the Brexit movement in the United Kingdom, where the United Kingdom and half of their population felt that maybe the relationship with the European Union was giving up too much sovereignty, too much power to the EU. And, the big slogan of Brexit Leave campaign was, let's take our country back. Let's take back control, because they felt like they were giving up too much of that control to the European Union. Of course, the flip side of this is you're giving up the benefits of those close connections with others. And by creating this antagonistic approach to your foreign policy and to your relationships with others, well, maybe that could actually harm you in the long run as well. The second way that nationalism can lead to conflict is through contested historical claims to land. In one of the previous videos, we looked at the importance of Jerusalem to Islam, Christianity, and Judaism. In that part of the world, Israelis and Palestinians both have that competing claim to that territory, and so that desire for their nations to have that sovereignty, that control over their own destiny, well, that's led to conflict there. On the Israeli side, this has led to the establishment of Israeli settlements on Palestinian territory, which is a violation of one of the UN Security Council resolutions. But Israelis feel they have that claim to land and that sovereignty over it, so those settlements continue to be established. On the Palestinian side of things, the Palestinian sovereignty movement, that desire for statehood, has become very widespread, and Palestinians feel like they have that claim to a chunk of that land in the Middle East. And in some cases, that drive for statehood has turned violent over the last several years. The third way that nationalism can lead to conflict is through national self-determination and the drive for sovereignty, the drive for statehood that a lot of these stateless nations feel. And so Catalonians, for example, living in northern Spain, want a state to call their own, don't feel quite as attached to Spanish nationalism as they do their own Catalonian nationalism, and recently in 2017 held a referendum to separate and become their own nation state. However, the Spanish government felt that referendum was illegal, and it started a major constitutional crisis in Spain. Lots of protests and lots of conflict as a result. However, maybe those stateless nations do have a legitimate claim to having their own nation states. The larger states might not want to give up the people, the resources that come with those territories, but maybe that nationalism that some people feel is deserving of their own nation state. The fourth way that nationalism can lead to conflict is through cultural conflict. And we've seen this historically numerous times and in pretty devastating ways. So during the colonial period, high imperialism, Great Britain establishing colonies all over the world, other European powers establishing colonies all over the world as well. With that came a very major sense of Eurocentrism, that feeling that Europeans are superior to others living in other parts of the world, and therefore European nationalism or British nationalism or the nationalism of whatever other state in Europe was superior to that of the places that they were colonizing. And this led to some extremely harsh treatment of the people there, right? Slavery came about as of that feeling that Europeans had of superiority over Africans and felt that they could deal with Africans as if they were property. And we continue to live with the legacies of that. In other parts of the world, it led to the colonial governments trying to eliminate the cultures of the people living there. In Canada, for example, the residential school system was a major way that the Canadian government tried to eliminate the culture of the Indigenous people in Canada through these residential schools. And again, in Canada, we continue to live with the pretty harsh legacies of that. The fifth way that nationalism can lead to conflict is from what we call ultranationalism. And ultranationalism is this extreme form of nationalism where one nation straight up believes that they have the right to dominate over other nations. And this feeling of the right to be able to dominate others has led to some of the most disastrous periods in human history through this ultra-nationalism. So for example, in the Second World War, Nazi Germany and their nationalism believed that the superiority of the Aryan race meant that they had the right to dominate others in Europe and led to their war of annihilation, but also, of course, the Holocaust. In more recent times, ultranationalism has led to genocide in Rwanda, for example, where the majority Hutu and their extremist nationalists believed that they had the right to control Rwanda, which meant the annihilation of the Tutsi minority in that country, leading to one of the most destructive genocides in human history as well. So what do we make of nationalism in our world today? We continue to have a more globalized world, and the movement of people has been changing national identities everywhere. And in part, this has also led to anger among the populations in countries whose identities are changing, as many continue to hold on to their national stories. This, in turn, has led to a resurgence in this old school nationalism to fight back against these changes. And we see this through the growth of political parties that tout this type of old school nationalism. Globalization, however, isn't going anywhere. And we do aim to gain a lot from diversity and from learning new things from people around the world. And so maybe rediscovering, reimagining, redefining what our national identity is can help us grow and become better towards the future. And with that, again, thank you for watching. If you haven't already done so, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss anything in the future, and we will see you again next time.